Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Gary A. Swaby, and you're now listening to our short discussion of the Iron Fist Netflix series. This show will have no spoilers. We're just going to give a general overview on, what we thought of the Iron Fist show after watching it. So I'm here with Jake James Lugo. How you doing, Jake James?
I'm good, Gary. Eager to talk about this. You know, I've been waiting on this show for quite some time, so I can't wait to talk about it.
Oh yeah, I know you've had a lot to talk about with this show. And we're also here with Dana. How you doing, Dana?
Hello, everyone. Very excited for the show. Can't wait to see the rest of it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I've talked to both of you guys about this show in private and stuff, and we've had some good discussions. So, very your thoughts on everything we got to talk about. So, first of all, I just want to ask you guys, remember to answer very briefly because we can't go into specifics. But, what did you actually think of this portrayal of the Iron Fist character and Daniel Rand? Was it true to the comics and stuff? What do you think, JJ?
As someone who's read the Iron Fist comics, they're following with the Netflix shows. They're following a very similar formula what they did with Daredevil, where it takes a little bit of time for the character to become exactly like what you know, especially if you read the comics. So this is again following the same suit. Danny Rand, who's the main character that we all follow, who is the main character in the comics that we follow. But even though there's other Iron Fist characters that pop up here and there, but that Danny Rand is really the focal point here. So it's taking some time for Danny to become the Iron Fist that we love. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's going on within the first 6 episodes of which we've seen where it's a lot of buildup, and I feel like eventually all that's going to be turned into that big payoff. Same way that we got with the first season of Daredevil, and you could even argue with Jessica Jones in the same way. Not so much Luke Cage, because Luke Cage was already Luke Cage right from the very get-go, because we got introduced to him in Jessica Jones. But for Danny Rand, I feel like again it's having a good, nice, slow build-up to like for what he's going to become.
Yeah, true. What do you think about that, Dana?
Yeah, I completely agree. It was a very slow build-up, and on emphasis on slow. It. I felt that by taking its time and introducing all of the characters, we were able to get more of an established background on everything that's going on in that show. And that is one thing that I really did appreciate about it, was that the pacing was good. However, I had a little bit of problem with the pacing being too slow. And I don't know what I was just anticipating and really wanting, him to be that Iron Fist character. But for me, waiting for something to happen. And it was more of a waiting game more than anything else.
All
And
right.
that was kind of the drawback for me. And also, I really didn't appreciate some of how the character was set up. Again, I don't have much knowledge of the comics, but I felt that it was a ripoff of Arrow.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Like, what elements do you think were kind of parallel to Arrow?
Well, I think the entire pilot, if you watch the pilot episode of Arrow and watch the pilot episode of Iron Fist,
Mhm.
same situation, same thing. And again, and I don't really know how much about the comics on either one of them. But for me, it was literally telling the same story. And I felt that it could have been a bit different. I just didn't like how I know we all know about the what happens in his background, but I just felt that it could have been a slight twist, or maybe they could have tweak things just a little bit so that it's not the exact same. I can't really go into great detail, but
Yeah, I
it's
understand.
it's similar. Just if you look at the pilot episodes, they're similar to each other.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I agree a lot with what you both kind of said. It definitely is a slow build up, with the character. I feel like there's a lot more to see of Daniel Rand and Iron Fist, but we just, we haven't really got to see much of his true character yet. And it's doing a lot of character building at the moment. Unfortunately, it's just taking a little while. But yeah, I mean, one of the things with this series, like I'm sure a lot of people are going into this thinking that it's going to be, you know, super action packed with a lot of martial arts and stuff like that. And me personally, you know, like Dana, I don't have much experience with Iron Fist in the comics or anything, but I know that when I went into this, I was expecting it to be like Daredevil season 1 and 2, like where there was just loads of you know, amazing martial arts scenes and stuff like that. But we really didn't get too much until like the last couple episodes. That's when it really started to get, you know, a bit more action packed. But you know, what would you guys think of the actual action inside the show so far?
Oh man, like in all honesty, like what Dana said, and I don't think it can be emphasized, you know, enough that there's such a slow burn with this series. And much like you and everybody else, I was thinking like right from the very get-go, from day one, we're gonna hit, you know, we're gonna hit the ground running. I felt like we were gonna get a lot of action. I felt like this was going to be the martial arts show for Marvel. Like, because that's how usually things work out. Like, obviously, there's some story, plot, and narrative building, you know, that's centered around it, but the action should be the focal point of everything that's going on. And I felt that coming off of Luke Cage, coming off of Daredevil season 2, that Marvel would have been fine-tuning this actual show to be something like that. That this was going to be the one where it wasn't so much story building as much as it was action, and just giving you fun, crazy moments that you could like talk about and that you guys could get excited about. That's what really essentially Iron Fist is like in the comics here and there, even though he has its moments and stuff. It's really a martial arts type of type of storytelling. It's a martial arts type of show, and I didn't feel like we really got that, especially within the first 3 episodes. The biggest problem here, before we even get into the action of like what's going down or whatnot, it's really where the show feels like it's struggling from like an identity crisis, because it does not feel like an Iron Fist related show or related story for like episodes 1 and 2. Once it starts getting to episodes 3 and 4, and then afterwards, that's when you start to see a little bit more action, a little bit much more fighting going on, because that's what really, you know, martial arts shows and martial arts movies are really based on. It's like the fighting between 2 different parties, or at least, you know, some sort of action that's going down that keeps, you know, the pace at like a high adrenaline type of like, you know, pace and such. But for this one, for the few fight scenes that we did get, and there are a few, and there that some of them are planned out very well, I'll give them that. And I felt like right towards the very end is when things really started to get good. And I felt like at one point the last 2 episodes that we saw should have been the first 2 episodes. That's what I would have been totally fine if that was how things started out with Iron Fist. But we didn't get that, and that could be a number of different reasons. It could be because Marvel really feels like a lot of people don't really know this character like that, as compared to some of the other obscure characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or, you know, the Marvel comics and such. I felt like they really took their time to really build up who Danny Rand is. And I felt like maybe they took a little bit too long, kind of like Dana.
Yeah, let me just say for the listeners, you know, I don't think I said this before, but you know, all of us, we've seen up to episode 6 of you know, the series, because we got to see it early.
Out of 13, I think it is, right?
Yeah,
out of 13
out
or
of
14.
13, yeah. So when we're saying that, you know, it builds up, that the action builds up towards the end, we're actually saying towards the end of, like, you know, episode 6, pretty much. But yeah, so Dana, how do you feel about the action in, you know, these episodes so far?
Clunky. It is very clunky. It's just there is a scene that I'm not going to go into detail that happens in the first episode, and you're like, what?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It doesn't make any sense. And then on top of that, for me, I had a problem with how it was filmed. If you look at Daredevil, everything it flows. The movements and the martial arts, it flowed together. You know, the filming of it was so perfect. You knew that it was in one shot. It was a continuous shot, and you could tell that they really worked hard and trained. And then when you watch what happens in like the first episode of Iron Fist, it doesn't make any sense. It's not really plausible. But as the action slowly starts building, and as you were saying with the last 2 episodes, it kind of finds it finds a rhythm. I had a problem with it. Just seemed like everyone seemed to know martial arts off the bat, and so I just had that kind of issue with it. But it slowly starts to find itself as the episodes progress more and more. And it's like like you guys were saying, it's less of an action film for me. It's more of a lot of talking. So if that's what you're looking for, you know, coming in right to the bat, that's not what you're going to get, except for that one extremely clunky scene in the pilot episode. So
Yeah.
I wasn't with it. I couldn't get into it like I could with Daredevil, where everything was just like, what is going on? This is so amazing. This looks like, you know, people dedicated their time and hard work to do this, and you felt really appreciative of everything. To just to me, at first, it started out to just be really laughable, and then slowly, it kind of found its rhythm, and I kind of got into the groove of the martial arts. But it's clunky overall, very clunky.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. And yeah, I mean, like, I think what we needed from the show was just for it to be super action packed, because we've already had a lot of build up with, you know, a lot of the other Marvel Netflix shows. And we're just trying to get to Defenders at this point. And, you know, I feel like this show could have just started out being full of action and people would have accepted it. You know, of course, you got to have some character development, you got to introduce characters, but there's a way you can do that and balance it with the action, because that is essentially what a lot of people will be expecting when they watch Iron Fist. And unfortunately, you know, they don't kind of deliver in these first 6 episodes. And I feel like a lot of people may drop off, you know, for after the first couple episodes and not even continue to watch it because they're expecting something more, you know. And I know they have that other character, Colleen Wing, I believe her name is.
Yep.
And
Colleen Wing.
yeah, like sometimes it felt like they put her scenes in there as a way to keep some sort of martial arts happening. But we want to see Daniel Rand and Iron Fist doing that action, you know, not Colleen Wing, sorry. So
You know something based off of that, you just reminded me. So now I won't say the exact details of the scene in it, and I'm pretty sure you guys remember this, but there's a scene in there that, straight to your point or whatnot, we up to that point we haven't seen really Danny do stuff that really kind of like justifies him feeling like, oh, he's like this, you know, this guy that's been taught by, you know, by monks or has really learned some really hardcore martial arts. Because the whole premise and what they have in the trailers out there in the public now is that he's been gone for a very long time. He's been out of New York for a very, very long time, for years, ever since he was a boy. And he's finally coming back now to New York, and, you know, he's kind of like thrust into like this whole new world where like his company that his parents had is completely taken over by like family friends and stuff. It's not the same world he once knew. So there's a build up to, like, you know, this kind of like fish out of water type of story. The same idea of what they did with Captain America in some points, you know, in some of the movies, but they never really kind of like really hammer into the point that Danny knows a lot of different stuff. That's the reason why he was gone for so long. And like, you don't really get that until much later, towards like episode 5 or 6, or I would even argue towards like the end of episode 5, when you actually start seeing him really fight people at one point. And with Colleen Wing, I'm totally there with you. It was like she was there to justify, it's like, oh, there is some sort of martial arts or kung fu related things that are involved within this story. And I felt like she was almost, even though in the marketing materials they put her out there as like this hyper badass girl that kicks a lot of ass and does all these cool stuff, she's almost there as like a placeholder. She's almost there for just, you know, she's just there for the sake of just being there. And I felt like even though later on she has a, you know, some more significance to what's happening and such, you know, in relation to Danny and all these other characters, but I felt like instead of you.
Yeah, I completely agree. I did not like what they did with her character at all. She was just, you know, inserted in to please the martial arts fans. I did not like that at all. And to her, and also that's what the clunkiness. It was clunky with her just randomly, you know, being in those scenes, and I didn't like that. I thought it wasn't a great balance at all.
And was it just me, or was there a couple of scenes that involved her that felt like they didn't go anywhere? Like there's a couple of scenes that it was just her, that she was involved with some stuff. And again, I can't go into details because of embargo stuff, but like she was involved with some stuff and it just didn't go anywhere. And I feel like they're maybe going to come back to it later on, like after episode 7 or 8 or something. But like it was just there and never really addressed afterwards too much.
Yeah, it did. There was a lot of instances where it felt like they just placed her scenes in there just because there isn't too much action going on at the time, kind of thing. So yeah, I do agree. There were a lot of scenes that felt irrelevant with her. What was you gonna say, Dana?
No, I agree. There was scenes that just, didn't go anywhere. And I think it was just to fill that time in the script. Oh, we need, to get to the runtime more, so let's throw her in there and not have any really great significance. So I didn't
There's
like
also
that.
one other thing I want to mention too that I want to get your guys' thoughts on. The Meacham siblings, okay, which is Joy and
Harold?
Ward Meacham.
Oh, what? Oh, yeah,
Okay, those characters, the brother and the sister. Okay, they're in the trailers and stuff. Those characters are actually based on actual characters that are in the Iron Fist comics and stuff. They're a little bit different in the comics than how they're handled in the actual one thing that I really kind of like felt like at some point here and there is the same thing like we were just saying with Colleen Wing, where some of their scenes and some of the events that happen feel like it was, I was becoming bored, where they focused a little bit too much on them and they didn't get back to enough of how it relates to Danny Rand. Like they're even talking about Danny at some points, but like you're not seeing kind of influencing all this other stuff. It just didn't go anywhere for me. And I was like, okay, let's just go back to Danny. Let's go back to something else. Let's go back to Colleen or something a little bit more interesting to grab my attention again.
yeah, I do. Yeah, I see your point, especially in like the first few episodes. But I do like judging by how things were progressing in the last couple episodes that we saw. I do feel like they're gonna have much more significance in the latter half of the show because obviously like the hand and everything is kind of tying in with the business and stuff like that. So I feel like uh we'll start to see them play a more significant role eventually throughout the series.
Yeah, I agree completely. I didn't really find them to be that fascinating or that interesting, and there were scenes where they just talked and talked and talked and really didn't do anything. To me, the most interesting character was the homeless guy in the park.
Oh yeah, I remember him.
I just loved him way more than I did the characters that we were actually supposed to pay attention to. So,
Yeah.
and also one of the things I really didn't appreciate was they didn't really show Danny trying to adjust to life after being away for so long.
They kind of
Yeah.
did to an extent, not a lot. Like they made it more comedic in some instances, like when he finally goes back to his when he goes back to his parents was it company, and they're like, we don't know who you are, like you're not Danny Rand at one point. Like I felt like a lot of that stuff they addressed all that within the first 2 to 3 episodes, and I felt like they took way too long with it. That's what I mean, where it felt like the show was going through an identity crisis, because it felt like that whole situation could have been solved in the first like 20-30 minutes of that show, of the first episode, and it's like that extended for way longer, and it outdid its welcome much longer than what it should have.
Oh, okay. I just didn't feel it was enough for me, and I thought that the homeless guy really, added more to it.
Yeah, I mean,
But
yeah, I feel like they could have explored that a bit more, but I would have preferred just more action instead of like, and cutting out the little clutter like that. Because I mean, obviously we know that he's been away, and we already know he's been away and that he's coming back. So they only need to really show that sort of stuff like a couple times for us to get the point. So I would have just preferred more action instead of, it's like that we already know kind of thing.
no, no, not so much of the details, but just trying to get away for we was able to see that digital, like that
The tablet.
imagery. Yeah, the tablet. Just been a little bit more interesting to see see him.
Now, like, how do you guys feel about the actual effects of, you know, the Iron Fist technique that he sometimes uses?
They didn't use it enough, and that's going to be a big problem that a lot of people have because because of the fact that it's taking so long to actually for him to be quote unquote the Iron Fist like we're all hoping he would be, you know, towards the later half of the actual show. Within the first few episodes, he may be power a couple times, and the effect itself, it's cool. It's a neat idea. I actually like it, you know, even though it's kind of practical to some extent, and it's like, okay, of course, Iron Fist like that, or you know, glowing fist and stuff, and it relates to his chi, but I felt like there needed to be more situations where he used it, like or more situations a little bit more frequently where that came into play or showed maybe even other uses for his powers and stuff. You know, things like that that could really show and really kind of like develop how special that whole power of the Iron Fist is. They don't even really explain what the Iron Fist is, the power itself, until like maybe episode 2, which I thought was a terrible idea. Terrible idea, because that's part of the character of who Danny Rand is and why he is a superhero and stuff. And I felt like they didn't really kind of, you know, emphasize that enough right when you first jump into the series. That's something that I think a lot of people are going to get lost on.
Yeah, I'm wondering like if I'm wondering what the process is like, if it's complicated to do that effect, because I'm wondering why they wouldn't use it more often, kind of thing. Like, is it a cost thing? It costs to use the effect, or it takes too much time or something? I'm not sure, but I definitely feel like, you know, if he has that power, he should be utilizing it in more situations, and perhaps we will see that when we see the full series. But what are your thoughts on the Iron Fist technique, Dana?
I didn't think he used it enough. I don't know what the process is as well, and I was kind of concerned because I believe the next show is going to be the Defenders. So I don't know if, you know, I wanted to see more so that by the Defenders, you know, it would be well established and used, and you know, he would go around using it. So I just don't know what the process is, but I thought it was cool. I liked it, but I didn't want them to oversaturate the show with it, but I needed just a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah,
And plus it
definitely.
ties into the Daredevil as well, so that would have been, you know, cool to see.
Yeah. Okay, so like overall, how do you feel like do you think the show is well casted? Does everyone, you know, fit the bill in terms of their characters, do you think? Because I think it's well casted. It's just, you know, the direction could be a lot better, I think. But what was you gonna say, JJ?
I agree. I mean, I like Finn Jones as Danny Rand. I think he's fine. There are a couple awkward moments, and maybe he gets more of kind of like, you know, a lighthearted kitty feeling to me, and you know that's may or may not be the same thing like what they have in the comics. I mean, Danny Rand in the comics, he's jokey. He's kind of like Tony Stark, but not as witty and stuff because he's also a billionaire in the comics, much like Tony Stark. Again, there's a lot of parallels between the two characters, but some of the other characters, I mean, again, I felt like maybe there isn't enough time to have them really grow on me just yet, or there wasn't enough like events that really made them grow on me. Jessica Henwick as Colleen Wing, I think she's fine as far as like, you know, being there to do the job that she's supposed to be there for. Again, I feel like I need to see more of her and Danny doing stuff together. The Meacham siblings? Same thing. I felt like they spend way too much time on them with stuff that didn't become interesting enough for me to really warrant them spending so much time on them. There's other characters, you know, based off of some other Marvel characters that I think we could talk about briefly at some point, and I'll wait for that I want to comment on. But they fulfill their roles as well. But as far as like just the core new Iron Fist characters that we're getting introduced to here, pretty much the only one that really did it for me because we spent the most time with him is Finn Jones. That's it.
All right. Okay. How about you, Dana? How do you feel about the casting and everything?
I like the casting. My problem is with the script and the direction.
Yeah.
But I think everyone did their job to their best ability, much like Luke Cage. It was to the best of their ability. I just think everything is hindered by the script. And they need to find out a pace of where they want to go with this. I don't think it was well fleshed out. But the casting, they did their job. To me, everyone satisfied their role.
All right. Yeah. And you know, the last thing I wanted to ask, and you know, you guys can add as well after this if you have more to say. But the last thing I wanted to ask was, how does this show compare to the previous Marvel shows on Netflix that we've seen so far? Because for me, so far it's looking like I mean, as far as the order, I mean, it would be at the bottom, I think, like one of the ones at the bottom. Because I think, you know, Luke Cage, I wasn't the biggest fan of Luke Cage because the second half of that show, you know, I really wasn't too fond of it. But this so far is below that, I think, because I mean, Luke Cage had a great first half, but yeah, this so far is like it's been kind of bland, and you know, just not as much action as I thought there would be. So you know, you guys, how would you compare it to the previous Marvel shows that have come before it?
Honestly, I'm kind of with you on that to an extent. I feel like if the next batch of episodes for Iron Fist don't really kind of pick up the pace and really bring what everybody's been hoping to see more of and such, this might be the first dud we see from Marvel Studios for the MCU. And the reason why I say that is because, again, that whole beginning, it was a chore to get through the first 3 episodes, and, you know, or at least I should say the first 2 episodes in actuality. But once you start getting to, like, you know, the middle of that, from what we saw of the first 6 episodes, that's when it, you know, hopefully things get a little bit better. But I need the next batch of episodes after this to really do it for us. There needs to be some sort of big events. There needs to be some sort of big things that happen for this to actually be considered a hit, or it's at least, you know, get people, you know, excited or happy about actually putting the time through watching this. Because I think I'm with you where some people are just not going to get past those first few episodes because, again, this is not, it doesn't give enough to make you want to stay around for the rest of it. So I don't know. Like I said, if it doesn't do it after that, this could be Marvel's first dud.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I do think there's a chance they can turn it around in the second half and, you know, make it pretty epic. But I just feel like, you know, it's been such a slow start that, you know, I just don't know if that's, you know, if that's going to be the case. But I guess we got to wait and see. But Dana, how would you compare it?
Terrible. All the way at the bottom. Yeah. I'm sorry. I did
That's
have
harsh.
Sorry. But the thing is here, I enjoyed every Marvel show, but the thing is, like, nothing was perfect. None of them were perfect. The thing I had the serious issues with Luke Cage, for example, was that it was really slow and it was kind of boring and they didn't really give him much charisma. But they had other characters around him that was really magical. Iron Fist does not have that. So to me, everything is just boring. And you're just hoping that it improves. And it was really a chore to get through. A show that is by Marvel, after everything that they've been through, should not have something that I have to try to get through. And hopefully the second half picks up. But right now, it's all the way at the bottom. I'm bored. The characters are boring. The script is boring. The direction is boring. I'm bored. I like the Iron Fist, you know, when they did the power. That was great, but that's not going to hold my attention. So hopefully it picks up, but right now, no, it's all the way at the bottom.
Okay, that's interesting. I kind of felt like, you know, I mean, this isn't really, you know, giving spoilers. It's more me giving a prediction, but I feel like, you know, in the second half, I think because we're leading into the Defenders, I think things are going to start to get a bit interesting, and I think we're going to see a character crossover. I mean, obviously we've seen crossovers occur already, you know, but I feel like we're going to see, you know, one of the other guys like, you know, Daredevil or Luke Cage or, you know, maybe even Jessica Jones, you know, in towards the end of this series to set up the Defenders. Do you guys think that's possible?
You know something? Part of me feels like that's what they probably would need towards the end of the series in order to make this, like, you know, a good payoff, because there is crossover. Like, we do have crossover characters, and again, we can't say who exactly or the circumstances behind it, but you know, things are in a bad position when it's like, oh, that's pretty cool, and it's not exciting like other series. That's a problem for just about anybody. Again, specifically for Marvel and stuff. For me, what I think is probably going to happen, you know, making predictions and not seeing past the sections that we saw, I feel like we're probably going to see characters, not the major heroes, because I think they're going to save that for Defenders when all the heroes come together and then they're interacting and stuff. I think we're going to see some of the other minor characters from some of the other shows start to appear a little bit more, or at least, get those nods, a little bit more so than what we got up to this point. Maybe the big payoff towards the end is maybe one of the other heroes is like, hey, what's going on? Shows up, and that's how you end it, even though that would suck. But one of the bigger things that I was hoping, at least for this, and kind of Luke Cage kind of like put that in the bag, unfortunately, was that we would get a little bit of a nod towards the Heroes for Hire. And if anybody doesn't know what Heroes for Hire is, in the Marvel comics, both Luke Cage and Iron Fist got together and they created a group called Heroes for Hire, which is basically like they're basically fairies that would go around and you would pay them a fee and they would help you out, as superheroes. And I was hoping, if not in Luke Cage, maybe in Iron Fist, we would get some sort of, allusion to that, or at least some sort of nod towards that. But Luke Cage really kind of put the nail off, a little bit kind of like shaky explaining that. So maybe once we watch Defenders, that'll actually get more into that territory. But who knows? Maybe they need that sort of type of thing to happen now in the second half of not Luke Cage, Iron Fist, in order to make this a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's possible that because I mean we can talk about Luke Cage, it's already out. So at the end of Luke Cage, he goes to prison or whatever. I feel like it's definitely possible that at the end, and again, people, this is not spoiler. This is me making predictions. I definitely feel like it's possible that at the end we can see Matt Murdock. He's not in the suit or anything. He's he's just a lawyer. He's doing his lawyer stuff, and he brings Luke Cage up because of the nurse and everything, and
she says that's him at the end of it. I remember towards the end of Luke Cage, she mentions him about that.
Yep. And then Luke Cage comes out, and maybe they help Iron Fist or something. I definitely feel like that's a possibility, but they, like you said, they might save that for the Defenders. But it would be great. I feel like this show kind of needs something like that to make it really stand out. Any thoughts on that, Dana?
Oh, I hope so. I really hope so. It needs it so bad. It just, the personalities of those characters with some type of energy into the show that is desperately needed. I do expect that they would come in, clearly, obviously, at the last episode, but I want something more like a 3-episode arc with the characters in there. We need a little bit something, so that brings everyone together. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the second half does, and I hope that they're in there, because we have crossovers before. Obviously, we're gonna get the obvious night nurse who seems to come into everyone's show, so we'll get her. But we need something that's Danny Murdock and Jessica Jones. I would love to see Jessica Jones in this more than the other two so far. But we'll see. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I guess that would be like any variation of them would be interesting. I think so. I hope we get some of that, because if we don't get any build up whatsoever to the Defenders, I feel like the Defenders might start out slow too, because like they'll have a lot to do to get them together. So I kind of want to see some build up happen, but I guess we gotta wait and see. If that's reality. But yeah, is there any final discussions that you guys wanted to raise up, JJ?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm really hoping that the second half of this show is a little bit better. Again, I don't want to see a dud from Marvel. I really believe, now thinking up about it, that Marvel saved all the really good stuff for the second half, because again, their track record from all the previous shows and even the movies, they've been really consistent with the quality of stuff they've been putting out. So this might be one of those shows is like, okay, we got a lot of build up and a lot of like, building up the worlds, of the show and stuff. And then towards the second half, all of a sudden it's just full speed adrenaline ahead. That's at least what I'm hoping for right now, but who knows? I could be wrong. Let's hope for the best.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that myself. I hope that's the case. I have a lot of faith in Marvel and Netflix, so I do feel like
Me too.
I do feel like we're in for a good second half, but we just gotta wait and see. Dana, any final thoughts on the show?
Fingers crossed that I'm proven wrong, and it's wonderful and it's fantastic, and the Defenders end up being a great tie-in to the show. That's what I really hope. I don't want to hate everything. I want to be proven wrong. So I'm really hoping that I'm proven wrong and that they get their act together and, they learn how to write and direct.
Cool, cool. Yeah, so that's gonna be it for now. We're definitely gonna come back and have a spoiler-filled discussion once all of the episodes are out, and we can, talk about everything in detail. But that's it for now. If you have any comments out there, then definitely leave your comments. Let us know what you think about the show. Let us know if you're looking forward to it and everything. And yeah, until next time, thanks for listening. Peace out.